Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
So what sold this week?
Well, before I say that, I teased last week, and I want to make good.
Oh, that's right.
I want to make good on this. So yeah. I held up a couple items, and I'm going to hold them up again. I have, 6 of these. And what these are roughly about an inch tall, roughly about 2 inches tall to an inch wide. These are little tiny, they almost look like what would be on the inside of an old brooch or pin, right? They're oval, they're flat, and they're black. And on the front side, they have these little pictures. Some of them are more colorful than others, but of flowers and leaves and maybe little fruits or little where they're budding out and that sort of thing. Here's a couple of more black, and then the last one here is green. It's the same type of thing. It's just on a different type of background. Yeah, they're beautiful. So what these are called is something called Pietra Dura, which is Italian. It really roughly translates to hard stone. And so what these things are, they've been made since back in Roman times, but these particular ones I'm showing were made sometime around the mid-1800s, and likely these specific ones were in brooches, maybe solid gold brooches. A lot of them were put in gold or gold-filled bezels around them. What this is made out of, they can be made out of a variety of things. They can be made out of something called jet, which beads, antique Victorian beads, and some other types of jewelry were made out of that substance in the past. It could be made out of black glass. It could be made out of, and what I think that these are, is black marble. So it looks black like onyx, if you know that gemstone. What these little pictures are, however, they aren't painted from a distance. You might think, oh, that's like an enamel paint or something. It's actually small pieces of semi-precious or precious gemstones that have been meticulously carved out and then inlaid in such a way as if you think of how a jigsaw puzzle fits together, that's really just shapes on the side. There's not really anything three-dimensional about it. They lay side to side. In these cases, the underside, almost like flooring, wood flooring with its tongue and groove, would be attached. They are made in such a way, like by very skilled craftsmen, to have these grooves so that when they fit them in, they're going to fit together kind of like a puzzle. And then they flatten them out, they buff them out so that it's a flat surface. And what you're left with is this really pretty piece of jewelry that might have angel skin coral or agate or jasper or turquoise or jade. And some of these ones, one I'm going to hold up right now, has flowers as a green color because it's entirely made of jade or jadeite.
Wow.
Most likely from China. But these were made in Italy in the mid-1800s. Here's one with a bunch of turquoise that are flowers, and they are really pretty. The last one here that was made of has a green background is made of a metal called malachite, and it's a pretty well-known, it's very distinctive. It's got these dark green striations. That's just the way that it forms, and it has some coral in it. I didn't know what these were until recently. I just thought that they were, and they are kind of in the same world as micromosaics, but they're distinctly different. The old ones, and the whole reason I wanted to bring this to people's attention if you didn't know what it was, is that they're terribly valuable. Something like this that I've been showing and talking about, without being in a brooch or anything to hold it, or in a frame, can still sell for $150 to $300+ just one of these.
Wow.
If you get on and look up Pietra Dura in eBay, you're going to find all kinds of small, even old stick pins where the very top of the stick pin, really small, has this in it. All the way up to large, what look like pictures in frames that are made of people or some sort of scene, a landscape scene. But it's the same principle. It's just that it's larger. So they're making pictures, almost like if you were to cut things out of a magazine, like we all did that, right? And you put something together and glue it down to make a picture.
Collage.
Like a collage. But these are very meticulously made and out of really cool like I said, gemstones, and they're grinded down. So if you come across something like this, or you inherit something and you see, get it tested, because it's very likely it could be in gold, for example. But familiarize yourself with this stuff, what it looks like, so that if you see it out and someone else doesn't know what it is, then, that could be a score for you.
What is anybody making these now, or is this just a lost art?
Great question. It was more or less a lost art until the last couple of decades, but there has been a resurgence, and there are now a variety, both in the United States and in Europe, and possibly elsewhere, of contemporary artists who are creating things like this. And they're exquisite. I mean, I looked at some, and they're incredible. And they're demanding high prices as well, because a piece that's, made in this way could take weeks, possibly even months to make. I don't exactly know. It depends on the difficulty level and the cost of sourcing the ingredients, but sourcing the components that you need to put it together might be costly as well. So keep a lookout for that stuff. I think it's really cool, and it's just fascinating how the types of things that were interesting and culturally relevant and worn and known, for example, in the Victorian era, it's not all but forgotten, but a lot of people wouldn't have a clue what they're looking at now.
And it was all handmade.
It's all handmade.
Yep. So it's got that value in and of itself right there. That's really cool.
All right, so items that I sold. We'll talk about. I pulled out 4 things. I already packaged up probably 25 this morning, and I've got another 30 to do today. You know what all the ones I have to do later today are? They are all sealed, unopened, unused, early 2000s Simpsons, like the Simpsons cartoon show, action figures of all types of different characters and with different components, all this stuff. I mean, I had like 140 of them or something that I'm selling on consignment for someone else. So I've only sold about 30 some of them, so I've only sold maybe 20% of what I have in the first round, but it's already brought in maybe 12, I have to look it up, upwards of $1,500 for the ones I've sold so far, so I think they're going to be happy.
Is the Homer Simpson the most valuable one? I would think so.
No, it depends. Not necessarily. You've got some of these, like the clown character, Krusty. Krusty. Sometimes he goes for more. Sometimes there's one that was like a comic book guy. I mean, some of these are like very lesser. Like some of them are lesser known characters, but it just kind of depends. I don't know that collector market real well, so I just put a bunch of these up on auction. I was like, I'm going to let the public determine the value of these. I don't really know how. There's a lot for sale, and a lot have sold. I just don't know, I didn't know how long it was going to take for them to sell. But I was happy that I got some of this to go initially.
Well, little side story there. My daughter, who's 9, her mother is mad at me now because I introduced her to The Simpsons. She's like, it's totally inappropriate.
Oh, man, I couldn't watch The Simpsons.
I couldn't watch
The Simpsons. I couldn't watch Seinfeld. I couldn't watch Friends. I couldn't watch
I watched The Simpsons shows with her.
Stuff.
It brings me back to my childhood. It's so great. Anyway, the Flaming Moe. Anyway,
That's right.
All right. What else sold this week?
One thing I sold is this item. This is a Victorian era hat pin. So it's roughly 6-7 inches long. It's just a steel pin that's pointing on one end. And on the other end, you have a green hard plastic, some type of hard plastic that is very kind of an Art Deco design. It was really neat. I bought a bunch of these at an estate sale recently, and I've been selling them off either individually or in small lots. This sold for $42. I think $42 or about $40 is maybe what I paid for, I don't know, 3 or 4 dozen different kinds. Certain ones don't have much value. Others can be worth hundreds of dollars if they are gold-filled, solid gold, or have interesting rhinestones or interesting designs. This one was unique. I'd never seen one like it, which is why I put it up individually and sold in 1 week on auction for $42. Now, all the others, it's just profit because I've already made my money back off of that whole lot. Another item I sold is this. This is also old Victorian era. This is a heart-shaped 14-karat solid gold locket pendant. It has, I wish these were diamonds on the front, but they're actually rock crystal, which was a pretty common alternative clear stone that was used back in the 80s, even in some finer jewelry as an alternative to the cost of a diamond. But inside, it doesn't have any pictures, but it does have glass and area on either side where you could put a photograph of a loved one or a friend. So it's 14 karat gold based on the weight and whatever. This sold for $270. And somebody, I don't know, maybe somebody will wear it. Maybe they just collect it. Maybe they bought it to scrap. I don't really know. But I was happy to get that. That sold on auction as well. That was actually something I sold for someone else, so I didn't pay for it. But knowing what the value is. By the way, I have a kind of a cheat code. I think I've talked about this before, but I have a ring on both hands on my ring finger. One's my wedding ring. The other one's just a different ring. I have one that's silver and one that's 14 karat gold. And the silver one is roughly half the weight of the other one. The other one's about 8 grams. The silver one's about 4 grams. So every day, the prices of gold and silver change. But if I'm going to go out, for example, and go look to buy something, I'm going to make sure I know what today's value of gold and silver is based on, or whatever the carat weight is, 14 karat, 18 karat. And I'll know how much an 8 grams is worth versus 4 grams. So let's say I find this little locket and they have a certain price. I'm going to put it in my hand and I'm going to take off a ring. I'm going to put it in the other hand. And I'm going to say, which one is it roughly equivalent? Is it more heavy? Is my ring more heavy? I can get to approximate within 1 to 2 grams of what the value is of it based on the metal. And that will help me determine if it's a buy or not. So I didn't buy this one, but that is a window into what I would do. I would first figure out what the weight is. What is the base value? And then is it a unique enough item that I think I could sell it for more? Or would I just be faced at selling it, a percentage under spot to a scrapper? Couple other things I sold. I'm still working through. I bought somewhere around 600 men's and women's vintage wristwatches at an estate sale. You were there.
Yeah, I
at the one that I bought several. So they're still selling
for those.
That's right. There's two, you were the bodyguard of some of my stuff for a little bit. But I sold 2 men's. These would be considered more like tank watches, which refers to them being kind of rectangular instead of just rounded off. They're both gold filled, and they're both Elgin brand, which Elgin had been making pocket watches and other watches for a very long time. They're both manual wind, which means they don't require a battery. You just set the time and wind it up, and then it should keep time for the day for you. They both work. They're running, and they were on auction. They sold for $55, which is decent. These are a couple of the nicer ones that I have. The crystal's not really scratched up much. They're in pretty good condition, and they've got newer black leather bands on them. So I think that was, I don't know exactly why, but sometimes people buy them. I mean, there's a big collector base for pocket watches and wristwatches out there. And it's also an investment class where people will buy watches with the intention of holding on to them until they increase in value. Now that's, it's speculative because you don't know what the value, if it's always going to go up or. But I'll tell you, I love buying watches at antique stores or thrift stores, especially because usually many times I've bought valuable watches for very little money because it's the same as other jewelry. They just know that when a watch comes in, it's $5. Regardless. Now, if it says Rolex or Omega or something like that, it's very obvious, they'll pull it out, right? But there are a lot of boutique high-end Swiss wristwatches and pocket watches out there that the majority of the public, unless you're in the watch world, you wouldn't know the name. You'd have no idea. So because I've handled and sold thousands of watches, I'm familiar with a lot. Not all of them, but I can walk in a place and I'll even know if it's a nice enough name. It could be in bad condition or not working, and I still know I'll be able to sell it for more than what they're asking. So I think it's worth, in lots of different categories, handbags, watches. You need to familiarize yourself with the high-end brand names so that when you go in a place and you're just going to be looking at that, if you find a Chanel you need to know that Chanel, for example, is a high-end brand that sells clothing and jewelry, because I've sold tiny little black earrings, gold-filled, for like $500 for a pair of earrings. That pair of earrings could be sitting in a little, wicker basket for $3 in a thrift store in your town because they don't know. It's definitely possible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I want to find Chanel stuff because they are worth a lot of money.
For sure. Last thing here is this tiny little baggie. This represents 42.5 grams of solid 10 karat gold. This is a mixture of old stick pins, tiny little pendants that would have held cameos at one time, a child's ring from the Victorian era, a pocket watch chain and fob, various other pieces. Some of it's wearable, but a lot of it's broken, tarnished, and it's just for scrap. So this by itself, as of yesterday, was worth right around $1,700
Oh my.
in gold value. I sold it for $1,480 because it was a scrapper buying it. And of course, they need to make their money or else they're not going to buy it. So they bought it for that. This jewelry, by the way, has come in with lots of different costume or other fine jewelry that I've bought over the last few months that, lo and behold, it had a piece of gold jewelry in it or whatever. Because of the quality of it, I'm like, this isn't something I'm going to sell by itself. I put it in this little baggie. Well, I wait until I had 40-some grams of it, and now I'll sell it in one lot to one person for a really good payday. I could have sold them individually. I just chose not to. So that's nice. I can put this in a bubble mailer. I'm not going to spend this little because I want to insure it and have them sign for it. But if this weren't as valuable, this could be something that would only cost about $3.98 up to $4.20 to ship. So I could ship this for just $4.
What's the maximum? Somebody actually asked us on I don't know where it was, Reddit or YouTube or something, about what's the maximum you can insure something for. So could you insure that for $1,400?
Oh, sure. At the U.S. Postal Service, like if you go into the store, I believe it's $4,000. I don't know about other couriers, FedEx or the others, but U.S. Postal Service is $4,000, and it starts off at like $100. Like I think some of like Priority, you're gonna get either $50 or $100 just as a part of purchasing that label, and then it goes up incrementally for every $100. It's like every $500 or every $100 over that more that you want to insure it. It's like it goes up $5, $10. So I mean, I may have spent $50 or $60, maybe $80 before, which is a lot of money. But if you have a $6,000 item, well, I need to put that. I don't want to risk it getting destroyed, lost, someone trying to defraud me. I got to do it.
Yeah.
For really expensive things, especially.
Well, as always, somehow we've managed to go way long. But
Look
that
at
was great information today, Matt. I'm going to be looking for nothing but small gold jewelry in wicker baskets now. And
perfect.
Pietra Dura, because I'm going to make millions off of that.
I know you are a wicker basket collector.
I'm a wicker basket kind of guy. Absolutely.
You are.
So any last words for the folks today?
Do you have any last words for anyone?
I would simply say,
tell your friends.
The theme of this show is information. So get as much information out of it as you can. Remember to follow, like, and subscribe. Tell your friends. Always helpful to write those comments, reviews, all that stuff. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back with a brand new show next week. But for now, we are out of time. So have a great week, everyone.
Take care.